at the chat feature, or if you've raised your hand as when I get to a place in the chat where I'll ask you for your opinion or an answer. Now, one thing I want you to know about this group is that you are never required to participate or introduce yourself or share anything personal. And that I'm going to see how that kind of takes shape. Like this is, obviously brand new, but I know when I was first starting my journey as it relates to anxiety, depression, and so many other things, like there was a little bit of a stigma attached that I did personally. And so it was a bit of time before I was really wanting anybody to know that I was struggling. So if you are in that space still, like I totally 100% respect that. So, share as much, participate as much or as little as you're comfortable with. Okay. I do want you to feel comfortable and I want you to feel like this is a safe place. And we're all in very, very different stages and phases in our own personal journeys. And so I want you to focus on you. I know that's not, we hear such the opposite. Everything's others focused, but for the purpose of what you're doing here in this space and in your heart and in your mind, I actually want you to take the time to focus a little bit on you because that might be why you ended up here in the first place, okay? So anyway, so we're gonna talk about circumstances and we will refer back to circumstances every week, every month, no matter the theme of the month and no matter the topic or the discussion of the week. It all will boil down to our circumstances because this is going to be a thing, right? So for the next hour, I'm going to give you the absolute top-notch information and understanding of what it means to change the things that you can and the wisdom to know the difference as it relates to interpreting our circumstances as factual things that happen or happened to us and around us in spite of us. These are things that we cannot change. And these are the things, and I'm going to list some off for you here in just a minute. These are some situations, if you will, and I want you to pay attention to the things that I list. These are just examples, but some of them might be examples that you can relate to, okay? These are actually, these are straight from a book, okay? These are circumstances that all of us experience or have experienced or know someone who has. And so if this is not your specific situation or circumstance, you can fill in the blank with something of your else. So these are just something of your own. So these are just examples. Thoughts, circumstances. I hate my job. My husband left me. My adult child makes me mad. My sister is disrespectful. I'm in debt. I don't have enough. I can't leave my job. There's not enough time. I am too busy. I have so much to do. I want a new job. I weigh 300 pounds. I hate my body. I am sad. I am depressed. I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to stop overeating. I want to eliminate my debt. I need to find a job. I feel fat. My son is failing math. My son is suicidal. I lost my job. I can't keep doing this. I feel stupid. I am mad at him. I hate her. I am 50 years old. She doesn't like me. She is so exclusive. I feel like a failure. I have had a hard life. I overspend. I can't save money. I'm going to lose my house. My kids are mad at me. I'm mad at my kids. I am frustrated with myself. Now, if you're like me, before I learned this work and began practicing it, you and I would both sit here and agree if we were in a conversation one-on-one and you or me, were sharing those exact same circumstances, situations, life happenings, pain, hardships. If we were sharing those things back and forth, you and I would both agree that everything that was just mentioned is a reason to feel the way we feel, think the way we think, and act the way we act, right? We give each other the benefit of the doubt. We enter into the stories that we each experience, whether it's with a good friend of yours or a spouse or whomever. And we tell these things so that we can justify our behaviors and our feelings. And most of those things that I mentioned, you and I would attach almost a judgment to them, right? We would be like, oh, that is awful, or that is bad, or that is sad. And most of those things that I share, just these random examples, are pretty terrible. They truly are. But if we dwell on how terrible our circumstances are, we will get nowhere. We have to train our brains in such a way that we can manage the hardships around us without falling apart. And so I'm going to coach you and teach you to renew our minds and thrive is actually going to take looking at the circumstances and the situations in and around our lives differently, and it's not going to be comfortable. So I hope you're ready. We do not renew our minds by thinking the same things and feeling the same things and believing the same things that we always have. We thrive by recognizing that all of life's circumstances are truly neutral and factual, okay? There is a space for your feelings and there is a space for your thoughts. So you're not going to have to remove how a situation's making you feel, but you are going to have to put it in its appropriate place in order to manage your mind in such a way that you're not just barely surviving. We thrive in this way. Let me see where my notes are. Okay, so what we do is when we recognize that our circumstances are neutral, they become something else and mean something else by the thoughts that we attach to them. Okay, so those thoughts that we attach to these circumstances in our lives or in our past, those are the thoughts that determine our feelings. And hey, bear with me. I know this is a lot, okay? Maybe I should have started out a little simpler, but hey, go big or go home, ladies. Okay, so these thoughts determine our feelings. And if you notice, when you think through this for a second, when you're thinking about your feelings, whether you're angry or you're happy or you're sad or you're motivated or you're energized, based on how you feel is actually based on how we act, right? And our actions determine our results. Now, not in this way that we can micromanage and control everything around us, but we actually do have the ability to alter and shift and change certain results in our lives based on how we think and how we feel and how we act. We just don't know how. And so that's what I'm going to actually teach you. If you've ever looked up the definition of insanity, does anybody know what the definition of insanity is? If you can, let's see, if you can go to, there's a chat feature. So anytime you want to just say something, every now and then I'll kind of look. There is, okay, yeah, the Q&A. So you can answer a question or not, but the actual definition of insanity, and whenever I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, now it makes so much sense. Yes, thank you. Doing the same things. Y'all are like smart. Y'all need to be like teaching me. So correct. Insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting different results. So we know this in our minds, but how do we actually take it and apply it to our lives in a consistent way so that we are not just surviving? So thanks, girls, for answering those. So unless we are deliberately doing something different, we are insane. Now, we might be sane in some areas and insane in others. So that's cool. We can do that. But as humans, we typically do the same things over and over and expect different results. Okay, so you found your way to the chat feature. So I want you to, if you like wanted to come on screen with me, and we will do this in a couple weeks when we do the group life coaching, maybe we should practice, but because this is a different platform. You did sign into a Zoom call, but it's a different form of a Zoom meeting. And so, like I said, I want to keep your faces hidden unless you are a volunteer. So you can ask anything. If you raise your hand, that brings you onto the screen. I've not done it yet, but it should. So anyway, so like I said, I mentioned earlier on that we're going to identify those circumstances, those examples that I listed, and I want you to think through, as I say a couple, if you would consider that a circumstance, and I kind of like gave you some hints so you're smart enough to figure out like, oh, that's probably, except I've gotten some wrong and I'm like way into my training on this because you kind of, sometimes it sneaks up on you. But the things that I said, if they are a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result. And this is going to be something I will refer back to as the model, and it's CTFAR, and it's called the model. The method is different, which is the deliberate method that I talked about on the webinar a couple weeks ago, which is the self-worth, sole proprietorship, surrender, and shift. That's the deliberate method. And then the model is not something that I created, but it is something we will use and access a lot. So if you think about the statement, I can't keep doing this, would you consider that a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result? So I'll give you just a second to type your answer there, or you can raise your hand and be visible. Okay, Michelle says feeling. So I can't keep doing this. Heather says thought. Y'all are doing so good. I know Jen's on here. She's probably like nursing a newborn. Thought, okay. So awesome. Y'all are like so fun. This is so fun. So you are correct if you said that I can't keep doing this is a thought. Jen she would say a combo. I know. And that's where it becomes so tricky, because you're right. And if you guessed feeling, that is how we are thinking now, is that is a feeling, but truly that is actually a thought. We have the thought, I can't keep doing this. And if you think that thought, what is the feeling that you feel? I know for me, I mean, I have the thought sometimes, as in every time our basement has a water leak or floods, I can't keep doing this. But I also feel like I can't keep doing this, but that is not true. It's the thought, I can't keep doing this, but the feeling, and y'all, I have, and I'll show you this again in a minute, a book of feelings. Feelings were not easy for me. I did not grow up experiencing a host of feelings. I tried to not feel anything. Sadness, anger, nothing. I couldn't feel anything. So I have to refer to my feelings list, because I am not quite sure sometimes. So if I have the thought, I can't keep doing this, a feeling that I might have with that might be overwhelmed, or a feeling might actually be angry, right? Or frustration, because it is such a life interruption with 5 kids and working and all these things. Like, it literally like holds you back. So it can make you feel a host of things when you think the thought, I can't keep doing this. I just looked at our little chat feature. It's really weird the way it moves it here, so I have to kind of like move my eyes. So yes, we have all had that thought I can't keep doing this. And especially when I was like in the deep trenches of depression and anxiety, I actually believed I can't keep doing this was my circumstance, right? I was like, no, it is a fact. Like, we can all agree Amberly can't keep doing this. But it wasn't true. It was just a thought. And anyone who didn't agree with like my self-pity, like, no, I can't keep doing this, and this is why I need to like lay in the bed and do nothing, and everybody needs to agree, and if you're not agreeing with me, then you're too harsh. And so I believe that to be a circumstance, and I'm sure that there were some people close to me that were like, oh my gosh, no, she can't keep doing this. But it's still not true. It was just a thought, and those were just opinions. And like I said, the truth of the matter is, I can't keep doing this is a thought that we have toward a situation or a circumstance that is actually neutral. So in that particular situation, the fact that kind of put me under, the circumstance that kind of put me under, is a factual statement, right? Is that Amberly had 4 kids in 5 years, lost her cousin tragically or unexpectedly, because somebody might not say that was tragic. I mean, that's harsh, but it, and I'll get into this in a minute, but my cousin, when we lost him at 16 unexpectedly, was an organ donor. So, the family that received some organs, that saved, so one family's loss was someone else's gain, right? And so it just gets a little bit tricky when we kind of really start thinking through it. And some people are like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. Okay, so do any of you have a factual circumstance that might be causing you to think, I can't keep doing this anymore, or I can't do this anymore? Maybe it's we are in debt, or maybe it is our house is, you don't have to share if you feel comfortable sharing something that you're experiencing that is a neutral circumstance fact, that is allowing you to think, I can't keep doing this, and that's okay. You're allowed. Don't ever feel like you're not allowed to feel the worst feeling that you have or think the worst thought that you have. You are allowed to, and I want you to give yourself permission to. This is not a place where you're going to say, oh, well, in order for me to thrive, I'm going to just be happy all the time, because that is not reality. It's just understanding how and when we can have these terrible, terrible thoughts, how and when to think a little bit differently, but giving yourself permission to do both. And that is what allows us a lot of times to end up in a situation where we feel like we are barely surviving, is because we aren't sure how to walk through the painful while experiencing the positive. So does anybody have anything they would be willing to share that's a circumstance in their lives that they're thinking, I can't keep doing this anymore? And I know what some of yours are, because you've shared them with me, but I would obviously never bring those up, and you don't have to either. So, okay, I don't see anything there now, but if we come back to it, or if you think of something, it's fine to throw it out there. So another thought that we might have is, I have had a hard life. Now, I might look at you and say, oh my goodness, you have had a hard life. And your friends may look at you and say, yeah, you have had a hard life, or your life is hard now. I know, because I have some friends who have 2 children, and they're like, I don't know how you do 5 kids. But you know, what's hard for one person isn't hard for another. So that could not be an actual fact. Every time my phone rings, I just like make sure it's not the clinic, you know? Okay, so, but whether or not you've had a hard life, or if your life is hard, is actually an opinion. Now, there could be a circumstance that everyone could look at as a fact that happened, right? But your thought associated with what happened to you is why you feel the way you do. Oh my gosh, Jen, you're back at work? I was like making sure you weren't telling me, hey, you have like a booger hanging out your nose. Somebody would need to let me know, okay? That is what a friend would do. All right, so I know more than anything that the reason why you are here right now is because you want to feel better in your life, so that you can show up differently, with more energy, with more joy, with more passion for yourself and the people around you whom you love. You don't want to feel so overwhelmed. You don't want to feel so anxious. You don't want to feel discontent or defeated or dissatisfied anymore. You don't want to feel angry, and you don't want to feel sad. But what we are going to begin learning and practicing is that, like I said a minute ago, it is okay to feel those things. I would never tell you to stop feeling the way you do, but I don't want you to stay there all day, every week, every month, right? I want you to investigate why you're feeling that way and what you can do to change it, so you can walk deliberately in the both and. And the term both and is a term I will use a lot, because you can be both overwhelmed. I said that with like 25 Southern syllables. Overwhelmed and anxious and sad and defeated and discontent and dissatisfied. Like, you can be all of those things, and you can be reasonably happy and content and full of joy and excited and grateful. It really is true. No matter your circumstance, you can do both by giving yourself permission to do both. And what you just need is a stepping stone, which is a stepping stone from the negative emotions that you feel to the positive emotions that you want to feel, and giving yourself permission and time and space, whatever you determine to be, to step back and forth. Because a lot of times we think, well, the circumstance is so terrible, and if I am not entering into the pain and the worry and the concern and the frustration and the doubt and all of that at all times, then I'm not loving the people I need to be loving well, because I'm not as upset about it as I should be. You need to give yourself permission to do both, because that is what is healthy in your mind and in your heart, and that is how you show up in a healthy way. So you want to learn how to step back and forth between them freely as you grow and being deliberate. And I want you to know how to shift when you need to shift so you don't stay stuck in the negative. I know with my kids sometimes, and they've had a painful, especially with girls, middle school, they can get their feelings hurt very easily. And I don't want them to feel like that's not valid. So I'm like, okay, we're going to set a timer. And you are allowed to cry. You're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to think and say and feel all the terrible, yucky stuff. And then we're going to turn that timer off. And then we are going to move on, or choose to. It's not always easy. It takes sometimes it takes time and effort to feel differently. And then we're going to do that for a little while. And then you can go back and open back up that box for a few minutes and feel that terrible stuff. It's just, we get depressed and we get into a vicious downward thinking spiral when we don't allow ourselves to do both, right? And we would not, oh wait, hang on. So I don't want my kids, I don't want you, I don't want me to think that the negative is bad. It's just, none of us want to feel the pain, right? But we wouldn't appreciate the positive feelings, the gratitude, the joy, the hope that we do have in life if we didn't know when we don't, and when we don't feel it. So we just have to navigate it well so we don't get stuck or sucked under. And you probably won't like this type of thinking or believing, because I won't always tell you what you want to hear. I will tell you what you need to hear. And this will kind of be a little bit uncomfortable since it's so unfamiliar for a little bit. But if you do truly want to feel better and thrive, then you will have to eventually believe something. And that is this, and that is that all life circumstances are truly neutral. And as we are working on, and I have like studies and curriculum that even, goes even back to like abuse, and how we respond to, I'm working with a client now who had significant abuse in her life. And, and she's finally getting to the point where she's able to say, okay, I can, and I don't work with like, there's some things that are like above my pay grade. Okay. Like you need like deep therapy, counseling, like shock yourself, something. But she's done enough work and counseling to be at a place where she's able to say, you know what, I'm willing to think differently about this now and stop blaming myself, stop shaming myself for the things that I experienced in my past, and kind of letting that perpetrator go. And it's really, really hard, but it's okay. So I do want you to know that there's always a direction that you can work toward, even if it takes you a while to get there. Don't beat yourself up over that. This isn't like an instantaneous thing. Sorry, no quick fixes in life, right? But what we're going to be working on is emotional management. And we have to believe this is possible, because what we're really trying to do is reconcile that in the world, God presents neutral things to us, and we get to interpret them positively and negatively. And the goal is not to interpret everything positively. None of us want to do that. We don't want to interpret all of the events in our life as positive. It's unrealistic and it's impossible. Because, if we want to have a be happy all the time and be happy about everything that happens, then we're like, oh, yay, a destructive hurricane that killed a ton of people. Oh, yay. Or puppies got hurt. Yay. Like that is how we would have to be happy all the time. And we're not going to do that about those kind of like silly examples, not silly examples, like you know what I mean? We're not going to do that about something that I just made up, which can still be true, but they're not going to respond to it in that way. And I don't want you responding to your painful situations in your life that way either. So what we try to do is we try to change our circumstances when we want to just do this happy thing all the time, so that we can be happy all the time. And if we can just make the world better, or our child better, or our marriage better, or our past better, so that our personal world has nothing negative ever happen in it, then we can be happy all the time. But it does not work. But what we don't realize is that's what we're underneath it all. That's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to like make it work, that we can make everything better and we can fix everything and we can change everything. So A for effort, but F for didn't work. And we're going to all encounter circumstances. right? And here are what circumstances include: our past, what's going on in the world, and other people's behavior. And the news flash here is none of those things can we control. And all of those things are facts until we have a thought about them. So, what I want you to think about when you think about thoughts are the sentences in your mind, right? Kind of a lot of what I listed in the beginning. There are so many of them, like 60,000 thoughts go through our mind each day. So, you want to look at those situations individually and you want to evaluate the sentences in your mind. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how that looks. So, understanding the difference between a circumstance and a thought is one of the most important components to changing the things you can. And now you're going to never be able to unhear or unlearn that. And so you're going to find yourself going throughout the day and you're going to think something or feel something and you're going to be like, "Oh, that's just a thought." And you're going to be like, "Oh, Amberly." Because that's now, I think now in terms of thoughts, like, okay, that's a thought. Okay, but I'm feeling this. And the reason why, is because of a factual circumstance. And so being able to organize it for me, someone who struggles with anxiety, gives me a place to put the things. I need a place to put the things that I think and feel. And when I see it that way, it helps me manage it better. So if you learn nothing else today, that's what I want you to learn, is that the difference between a thought and a circumstance, and understanding that it is understanding how your brain works and how it affects you is what we need to do. And I am not like a brain specialist. Like, there are plenty of people out there doing really big things as it relates to the chemicals in your brain and all these scientific things. I don't need the science personally. I just need to know like what I need to do so that I don't feel like crap all the time. Okay, so, all right, so a circumstance is something we can all agree on, right? Amberly is wearing a yellow sweater. The door behind me is white. My computer is on. This event happened in my past. All circumstances, when we start adding this horrible thing happened in my past, or that yellow sweater is comfortable, or that is the best brand of computer, or what else was the example I used? Okay, I forgot. But anytime we start adding qualifiers or descriptions or opinions or judgments, we have moved from a circumstance to a thought. And I posted the graphic in the group today about, now I don't even know which one I'm talking about, but it was the one on circumstances. And it just says that a circumstance triggers a thought, which leads to, I didn't use this terminology, but our thoughts lead to our feelings determine our actions, and our actions determine our results. I know it's like total crazy town. I'm sorry, but it makes sense the more you practice it and the more you learn it and the more you understand it. So, and I gave you the example about my cousin that unexpectedly died at 16. Fact, my thoughts around that are traumatic. Like, that was 8 years ago, and just telling you this story from my mouth right now, like, brings tears to my eyes. Like, it was so hard. It's still a painful situation for our entire family. Like, you don't reconcile that for a very long time. So you can kind of sit in the pain and sit in the anger and sit in the sadness, but then you also have to sit in the gratitude and, remembering his life and choosing to not linger in that grief, because he would be like, "What, y'all need to stop," so just being able to shift those thoughts. But like I said, and I mean, I'm talking, I don't know if any of you have had to experience this before, but my father-in-law, so I have actually been on both ends of organ donation, right? So my 16-year-old cousin who died unexpectedly was an organ donor. And then my father-in-law was a kidney transplant recipient. And he passed away 4 years ago, but he had his kidney, I think, for 27 years, right? So I've been on both ends. And, so as painful as that night was for us, when he was wheeled into the operating room and we watched, that was something you don't ever ever get out of your mind. But then you think about the family whose child lived, you know, and it's just, it's hard stuff, y'all. Like, this is all very, very hard stuff. Um, and as I don't want to be like a downer and be like, but I know that that was the, I would say, the circumstance that was my breaking point. So I use it for illustration because it was that much of an impact on me. And so that's why it's so important for me to help other women navigate the day to day in a healthier way in which you're thriving and not surviving, so that when and if you have tragic circumstances hit your family, be it you know, autoimmune disease or death or loss of a home, like whatever the crisis is for your family, because you've been learning how to navigate the day to day in a healthier, more thriving, deliberate way, when those things hit, you are not taken completely under. And you may for a little bit, and that's normal, but not in the way that I was. Grinning and bearing it, pulling up your bootstraps, or whatever that phrase is, does not get you far when you are surviving every day and completely exhausted because the thoughts in your mind are sucking your energy. So let me find where my notes are. Let's see. Okay. So like I said, it's going to be hard to believe some of these things for a while, and that's okay. It's hard and it's frustrating when you are experiencing what you're experiencing and no one can relate, or no one's entering into your pain, because you feel lonely and angry and isolated. And this, what I'm teaching you, is a different way of thinking, and it can sting a little bit at first, but it will help you think and emotionally manage whatever circumstances you're facing that you can't control, and you'll be able to live in the both and it will truly bring you freedom. Like, really and truly, hardship is the pathway to peace, because when we are weak, that is when he is strong. But if we're not saying, hey, I'm weak, we don't have the opportunity for his strength to actually be our strength. That was really humbling to learn. Now, one thing to differentiate around our circumstances is the difference between our thoughts and our feelings, right? So we've determined the difference between our circumstances and our thoughts, but we do want to determine the difference between our our thoughts and our feelings, because like you, and like me, especially when we're learning how to do this, thoughts and feelings get entangled, and we need to learn how to separate the two. So I'll often ask a person I'm working with one-on-one, how are you feeling, right? And they'll give me a thought, because feelings are one word, like I said. I mean, frenzied, that was the first one I looked at. Who feels frenzied? Fragile, dull, crying is a feeling. Crushed is a feeling. Carefree is a feeling. Alone is a feeling. Grumpy. My husband told me yesterday I was grumpy. Condescending is a feeling. So when we start recognizing that all of our thoughts actually have a determined feeling underneath them, we're like, oh, well, now I see the difference. We just don't know what we don't know, right? But determining my feelings is hard for me. I have like 10, and now I'm like, I gotta learn some more. Like, there's more here, I'm sure. So okay, so like I said, your feelings are going to be one word, right? That's kind of, you're like, no, my feelings need to be, he left me and now I'm doing all of this and such and such and such and such all on my own. That is my feeling. And it's like, no, we're going to back up. Here's your circumstance. Everybody can agree that your husband left your home, and your thoughts around that are, you know, I'm never going to make it, or he is such a loser, or I wish I had never married him, right? And that's going to cause a feeling. All the things I gave you a minute ago that we say, well, no, this is my feeling. He left me this. That's not your feeling. You have a feeling associated with it from the circumstance, from the thoughts, and you're going to learn to kind of fill in the blanks of your own circumstances, thoughts, and feelings. I'm just like throwing out examples. Now, for the sake of illustration, I want you to think about what you might do when you are feeling motivated. Okay. So think about for a minute, think about like housework, right? I don't know. I mean, my mom actually loves housework, so this illustration would not work for her. I literally hate it. Like I would rather like cry in the corner than like do laundry. I mean, that was a bit extreme, but I don't know. Do y'all love housework or do you loathe it? Like love or loathe? I need an answer here from you. Do you love it or do you loathe it? Loathe. Okay. Oh gosh, y'all, I just did something like I shouldn't have done with my screen. What's going on here? Oh my gosh. I don't want to. Okay. That was not good. All right. I don't know what's happened, but oh, I'm screen sharing. Sorry, guys. All right. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Chat. If y'all say, y'all, I do not. Oh gosh, sorry. Don't do that. Sorry, Laurel. Uh-oh. I don't know if I'm gonna remove you. Like I said, y'all, this is a new platform because I told you, all right. Okay, you're back there where you're supposed to be. Okay, I couldn't pull up my chat feature. All right, loathe cleaning dishes, but love laundry. Okay. That is so funny to me. I pretty much loathe it all unless like I've gotten everything done and I feel like that's the only thing I have to do, and then it can be a little bit refreshing. But now, if you're thinking of laundry, okay, and how much you loathe it, right? We all do have these bursts of energy where we feel this like motivation to have everything like tidied and picked up. And when we are feeling that motivation, we are like going to town. We're organizing, we're cleaning, we're creating, we're cooking, we're getting everything just nice and cozy and situated when we're feeling motivated. But if we are not feeling motivated, that stuff's just piling up. And so it's very, very important to be able to look at how we feel and the actions those feelings give us. And like I said, laundry or housework is just a silly example, but sometimes we got to look at the silly, kind of the mundane, if you will, to be able to shift that to bigger things as well. All right. So like I said, our results are pretty self-explanatory when it comes to the ways that we feel. Like if you're having thoughts about the laundry and you're like, I hate doing laundry for all these people. I hate doing laundry for myself. Like I do the laundry and then I do the laundry again. Like the laundry never ends. If you're having those thoughts, right, then you're going to feel like unmotivated, or you're going to feel irritated, or you're going to feel even angry about the laundry. So you're like, well, then you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to sit in my bed and I'm just going to watch something on Netflix. Right. And then what's the result of that? The laundry doesn't get done. Now, if you're able to have thoughts around the laundry of, and you know, sometimes I tried for a long time to like do the thing where like I prayed over each person's shirt or like sock that I was matching. That did not work for me. Okay. So if you're not that person, that's okay. But what did work for me was to say, I know when I get this completed, I will have a sense of relief or accomplishment or, you know, pleasure because I've gotten it all done. So that might be a better thought to hold on to when you hold on to the thought of, I know I'll feel better when I have this completed. Then you're going to feel a little more energized, and that's going to actually help you get the laundry done. And the result of that is that you have the laundry done and you're not in the bed watching Netflix and just avoiding it, right? And these are all other things we'll learn sometime about how we either react or we avoid or we accept the ways that we feel, even down to the laundry, from the mundane to the crisis. It's all about our thought process. So let me see what else. Okay, I'm gonna see how much time I'm having here. Okay, I might have to skip a little portion. But when I first teach this to people, they are like, what in the actual heck are you talking to me about? Like, this is like a foreign language. I don't get it. And so we just start practicing and practicing. And from here on out, you're going to try to start neutralizing your circumstances. I'm so glad that we're not in person, because I feel like people would start like throwing things at me, like, you're not telling me what I wanted to hear. Because you cannot change the facts going on in you, around you. None of that can you change. You can only change your thoughts. And when you do, you can change your feelings depending on what you're dealing with and working through over time. I know I've done some coaching sessions for myself. Like, I go through one-on-one a life coach one-on-one like this as well. And there have been some sessions that I've had where, because my job is to help you see your brain, right? My job is not to agree with your pain right now. Like, that's great. That's great for a counselor, therapy and such. This is for the person who is like, okay, I've done all that. Like, I can do that also, but I also want, like, quick, how do I shift this? Quick, help me see my brain. And some things you'll walk through and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm seeing this a bit differently. I'm walking through this a bit differently. Oh, I can see the difference in what I was thinking and also what I'm thinking. And you'll be able to do that stepping stone shift pretty quickly. But there's going to be others that you've got to hold on to and work toward for a while. And that's okay. That's like all part of it. Because the way we feel, we act the way we act, and feel the way we feel because they think the way we think, because we think the way we think. And that produces the results in our lives that right now a lot of us aren't wanting. Like, we are in this place because we're saying, hey, I've been doing it this way for too long. I've got to do something differently, right? So we're going to be seeing our circumstances differently and start changing the things that we can, which are our thoughts. All right. Now, if you have your little doohickey that I gave you today, this week, take some time. And I mean, this is a lot. You don't have to do that. I don't know. I didn't know if you were taking notes or whatever, and you can. But I want you just to kind of think through some of your circumstances going on in your life or in your past, that are unpleasant. Okay. So those are just kind of some circumstances. You don't have to neutralize them right now, right? Just kind of think through some things. Then you'll kind of go through this thought download sheet, and this will kind of help you be like, okay, that's a thought, that's a thought, that's a thought. I'm going to bring up a thought download I did last night. I probably won't read them all because, I mean, I'm all about being vulnerable, but I'm not quite sure I'm gonna be that vulnerable. Let's see. Let me see which ones I can read. Okay, so I can't wait. I'm about to read these to y'all, but these are some of the thoughts. Like, this is why I'm so happy and so excited that I actually know how to do this model and I know how to do this work, because being able to know how to do this and teaching other people to do this and having my freedom journey with anxiety and depression does not mean that my thoughts are just so automatic that I never have a negative one, or that I don't ever struggle with anxiety, or I don't ever struggle with negative thinking, which is depression. Depression is negative thinking over and over, because what you focus on gets bigger. So if you're focusing on the negative grows. If you're focusing on the positive grows. And also, confession, it was like hormonal, like the pre-menstrual stuff. So we got to take all these things into account. But the point here is, I know what to do with these things, right? So one of my thoughts was, we should have never moved. Another one of my thoughts is, I want to move far away. This is painful. The kids are whining and are overwhelming me. This is a constant mess. I can't take this noise. I wish I weren't here, like in my house. I'm ashamed. My garage is a mess. I don't want to host this party. I'm ready for it to all be over. What have we done by moving here? Okay, so these are a lot of the thoughts that I was having to do a thought download on yesterday. So that's what you can do. And you can like write those things down and you can rip it up so nobody ever sees it. Okay. But it just, you don't even know how much getting the thoughts out brings, that in and of itself brings freedom. Now, then what we're going to do is I want you to write down all the ways that you're feeling. Okay. Hang on one. Oh, wait. So what is what you are? Okay, Heather, do me a favor, retype that. It came through like I can't see it very good. Okay, so then you're going to kind of go through here and you're going to do a feeling download. And if it's helpful for y'all, I can get you, or you can like Google feeling wheel, because that's kind of a hard thing for us a lot of times, is we don't really know exactly how we're feeling. We just know that we're feeling the way we're thinking. So if you can actually determine what you're thinking as thoughts, as sentences, then you can kind of figure out, well, okay, and so I'm thinking all those things, but how am I feeling? And then you'll know when you're kind of putting down those feelings, and I'll come back and answer some questions in just a moment. I want you to, and I gave you 2 of these pages in case you like wanted to do more. So then what I want you to do is I want you to write down from the list of feelings that you list, like, what are the top 3 feelings that I'm feeling? Like, what am I feeling the most? Am I feeling the most overwhelmed? Am I feeling the most anxious? Am I feeling the most afraid? Am I feeling the most angry? Am I feeling the most vulnerable? Am I feeling the most humiliated? Like, what are the top 3 feelings that you would kind of want to zero in on? Because you could do like 500 of these a day. Okay. And then as you determine, okay, well, I'm feeling this way the most. Well, if you're feeling really overwhelmed, what is the thought that's making you feel the most overwhelmed? So for me yesterday, I think I was probably feeling discouraged. And I think I was feeling discouraged because one of my thoughts was, like, no matter what I do as it relates to like being a mom and being a parent in my home, like, it's just always still there. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Like, I want you to give yourself permission to think that and feel that, because then you're going to know what to do with it, right? But in denying it is when we stuff it and we repress it, is what increases the anxiety, increases the overwhelm. So just admit it and get it over with. Like, don't judge yourself for thinking the way you think, or feeling a thought you feel, or feeling a feeling you feel. So you're going to do your top 3 feelings that are kind of the most, and then the top 3 thoughts that you think are why. And then you're going to zero down to 1. They're going to kind of be connected. This feeling will be connected with this thought, this feeling with this thought, this feeling with this thought. So you're going to turn it around and you're going to choose the feeling that you're feeling the most, right? The one that's bothering you the most, or the one that you're feeling the most in your body. And from there, what is the thought? Why do you think you're feeling that way? What are you thinking that is causing that feeling? And then we take it a step further and we say, okay, like kind of like with the Netflix example. So say you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're feeling overwhelmed because you're thinking, no matter what I do in this house, it still just ends up being the same thing over and over, right? So for me, when I'm like having that thought and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I want to isolate. I want to detach. I want to just like give up. I want to like run away from everyone. So I might, and I don't do this like I used to. Now I'll say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go detach and isolate and get in the bathtub and like zone out, or do Netflix for an hour, as opposed to like the whole day and the whole next day, right? Because you got to give yourself permission, especially when you're beginning this work. We'll eventually talk through these being indulgent thoughts and feelings that we want to work on. And then, so what actions are you taking? Okay, well, I'm like stepping away from my family. I'm like ignoring them, and that's not great, right? So then I determine the way I want to feel. Well, the way I want to feel is enjoyment. Okay, maybe that's a feeling I want to have. So what do I need to think in order to feel like enjoyment? And, and I'm thinking to myself, like, they're seriously hysterical. And like, I could just sit around and just be entertained. Like, I don't even have to parent them. I should just like be here and be entertained right now. And like, maybe that's the thought you need to hold on to. It doesn't have to be a perfect thought or holy, right? It can be a little bit selfish if you need it to be. And so I know if I'm thinking they're like funny and entertaining, then I can actually like still relax on the couch and just like watch them, right? But the difference is that I'm present and I'm actually engaged as opposed to isolated and detached. Even though I'm still overwhelmed by like how messy and nothing gets done because nobody's listening to me half the time, right? And it can be the both and. And so I know that if I am thinking that thought and then I am feeling enjoyment and I'm just laying on the couch being with my family, then the result is that I'm being an engaged mom instead of an isolated mom. So I know that was like so much. So I'm going to pause, I'm going to stop, I'm going to be done, and I'm going to answer questions. And you can chat or you can raise your hand. Okay. So Heather says, okay, so the thought download sheet, do you write what you are thinking at the moment or throughout the day? Oh my goodness, you can do that however you want. I will sometimes, if I'm doing a thought download at night, like if I just feel like, I'm kind of feeling a little like something just is, I'm feeling uneasy or unsettled and I don't know why. So I'll just kind of start a thought download. Sometimes just like I said, I'll do it in the notes on my phone, whatever's handy, a piece of paper, and I'll just kind of go through all the thoughts. And I'm like, and then I'll look at it and be like, yeah, that's the thought I feel the most is that, I feel like I didn't, I was too lazy to tuck the boys in or whatever it is. And then how does that make me feel? And then I'll do the feelings. And so you can do this in the morning. And I don't know if it's next week on the training video I have for you, which the funny thing is that I've already recorded it and I already have your sheet. And I thought I was going to be doing this training call in my office, which is now loud because they're doing tile, like sawing it or something. So I'm like in my room on the couch, like doing a casual training talk. And now here we are, I'm in my couch again. So yeah, so you can do them throughout the day, or, it might even be a situation where it's like you're like, oh my gosh, I really think I'm a loser right now, or I think nobody likes me, or I think I'm never going to do this job well. So if you're just having a thought in the moment, you can do it on that, right? And just start with that thought and then do more. And you'll realize you'll kind of get underneath the surface of like right now you think, my boss is angry at me. And then you kind of you take your thoughts a little bit further. And then by the time you know it, you're like, oh my gosh, all my life I felt incapable. So then when your boss says something that is really not even a big deal to someone else, you take it to mean that you're incapable because you've felt incapable all your life. And then you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. What other questions, girls? Anything? And if you're watching the replay, feel free under the replay post, not the YouTube video, not this video, but under the actual Facebook post, ask any questions that you have later. So what do y'all think about this? Are you like, what? Okay, Jen says, very helpful to find a way to organize your thoughts and feelings. It does help to just write it down or just say it out loud. You can definitely feel bad when you hear it out loud, but it's out and that can be 100% freeing. I know, like it is so crazy. And it's one of those things where I'm like, where, like, why, like, sure, like, why did nobody teach us this? Like, I feel like we should have learned this a long time ago. But it is helpful. And it's actually, as much as my kids hate it, because I mean, they don't want you telling them anything they don't want. Like I said to my daughter, I was like, okay, so are you telling me that like you want to feel this way? She was like, yes, I just want to be sad. And which is fine, right? I mean, we have those moments. I'm like, but like, you like for like a while, or like, like you just want to stay that way? Or do you kind of want me to like help you think through this a little bit differently? And she didn't want my help. So I'm like, well, I'm telling you, like, I'm not helping you is not telling you what you want to hear or agreeing with this situation. I'm sorry. That's not what I'm going to do as your mom. Anything else, y'all? Any questions, thoughts, anything that I can help you with? And like, if you have like a personal example, or if you're like now thinking about something and you're like, okay, well, what would you say to this? You're totally free to ask that as well. Okay, but if you don't, or you know what, I hate it when people do that. You're like, no, I'm typing. Don't quit yet. This screen is going to take me some getting used to. Okay, now I have it popped out. So, okay. So Michelle says, this is super helpful and I'm looking forward to trying it. Good. And as you're working through it, um, like I said, in the Facebook group, I'm not going to have like posts every day, or I know especially a lot of people don't even like being on social media. So I don't want it to feel like you have to check in. But if you're doing one of these and you're like, okay, here's where I got stuck, just find a thread that's already in existence, or maybe I need to turn off where you do your own post and I'll see the tag, just to kind of keep the page a little bit more organized. But yeah, I'm excited you're going to try it. It's don't give yourself an expectation that you've got to do it perfectly. Just start working on it. Okay. Sometimes my mind is a battlefield and I feel like this will help me so much to process things in my mind. Oh, good. That is key. Like that is like why I'm doing this. And that is why I need it for myself personally, because you're so right, is and the battlefield in our mind is, worse during certain times of the month. It's worse when we are hungry. It's worse when we are tired. It's worse when we're having just normal extra life stress, like normal life stress. So you're right, having some tools to kind of break it down in your thought process is very helpful, because it actually gives your mind something to do. And I'm already thinking about like what we're going to talk about in December. And I know holidays may look different this year, so you may not be spending as much time with family, depending on your comfort level with, I think there's like a pandemic or something. Then that can be really, really hard. And so I'm actually going through coaching a course right now on, I don't even know what the title of it is, but it's basically like, oh shoot, I'm going to butcher it. But basically it's about dealing with the holidays and the stress and the people and the family and the friends and the obligations and whatnot. So I'll probably share some of that with y'all. I won't have that completely ready for this December, but all that to say, early on when I was really going through my anxiety recovery, there is a concept called, and I gave it an acronym, and my kids are like, Mom, and it's SITM, SITM, which is stay in the moment. And sometimes in order to stay in the moment, you literally have to be like, I am brushing my teeth. I am brushing my teeth. Right this minute, I am brushing my teeth, or I'm wearing a yellow sweater. I am wearing a yellow sweater. I have on white earrings. My hair is straight today. Like you're just talking through everything you see. Okay, like that is a purple bungee chair. That is a turquoise bungee chair. Why are there bungee chairs in my room? We don't know right now, but that's okay. The dog bed is in the corner. So you really just kind of talk yourself through, like, and you can do this even if you haven't gotten to a thought download that day. If you're driving down the road and you're just starting to feel super anxious about something, really and truly be like, oh, that is a tree right there. Oh, I see a billboard. Saying it out loud, what you're actually seeing is going to take your mind off whatever it is right then when you might need to do that. And so that is a thing, I was thinking about for December doing practically present, which is practical ways to stay present during, like, I'm telling y'all, it's not my favorite time of the year. It's like, I've got 5 kids. Like, it's like every other month there's a birthday. And then in December, I'm going to like do like 200 birthdays in 4 weeks or 1 week. I don't know. Anyway, so it stresses me out. So how can I be practically present? And that is, when I'm like super overwhelmed in my mind, I was telling y'all, like, look at the person's eyes when they're talking and like count the specks in their eyes, or like look at their eyelashes, or count freckles on their nose. Like, give your mind something to do so it doesn't just race away. All right, ladies, I'm going to end us out unless you have anything else to say, and feel free to come back later if you think of something, and I'm happy to help. So just put it in the comments under this video when it's posted as a replay. So hope y'all have a great day. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to it. Bye.